Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Right now, I am doing another unsolved murders for you, and it's the next one after Hollywood's whodunit. It's the bodies in the barn, Hinter Fact Murders. Fact was the name of a small, isolated farmstead situated in the beautiful rolling hills and forest between the towns of Ecolitz. Just so you know, I do not know how to spell or say the German words, even though I'm part German. And Skorpenheisen in Bavaria, Germany. It was the home of Andrews Gruber, 63, his wife, Celia, 72, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, 35, their children Celsia, 7, and Joseph, 2, and the new maid Maria, 44. The dead of night on March 31st, 1922, someone systematically slaughtered each family member of the family one by one and piled their bodies in the barn. Andrews Gruber was not a popular man in the local community. He was thought to be aggressive and greedy, and people in the nearby village generally avoided him. Victoria was the only child of Andrews and Cassilia to have survived into adulthood. Locals speculate that their children had perished because they were not looked after properly and were treated cruelly. The small children had to stay in the cellar for days. When you passed by, you could hear the children crying, a neighbor recalled. Yeah, you can tell the shit's about to go down. Even more damaging to Andreas' reputation was the public knowledge that he was having an incestuous relationship with Victoria, whose husband, Carl, with a K, Gabriel, had died in France in 1914 during World War I. Oh, there's my kitty. The year after his death, Andreas and Victoria was convinced of incest between the year 1907 to 1910. Victoria was sentenced to a month, Andreas to a year in prison. It was also rumored that Andreas was the real father of little Joseph and not the village mayor, Lorenz Skoltenlecker, with whom Victoria had also been having intimate relations at the time she became pregnant. Lorenz, Lorenz, had reportedly wanted to marry Victoria but had been stopped by Andreas, who had angrily chased him away from the farm with a scythe, aka something that he used for farming. Sorry if you see my wrist in a brace, it's because of my wrist from an accident years ago. Kristen Rager, the Gruber's maid, before the ill-fated Maria, later told police that she overheard Andreas tell Victoria that she does not need to marry because as long as he lives, he is there for this. The maid claimed that by this, Andreas was alluding to the fact that he was there to sexually satisfy his daughter, so she didn't need a husband. In the days leading up to the murders, Andreas told neighbors about some odd occurrences that had been unfolding at the farm. A matching newspaper was discovered on the kitchen windowsill, which the family found particular because it was not a local newspaper. When Andreas questioned the postman Joseph Meyer about it, he denied that he had delivered the newspaper to anyone in the area. When Andreas looked out at the snow-covered farmland, he noticed footprints leading to the edge of the nearby farmland, not farmland, but dark forest, to the farm, but none leading back. Was there a trespasser? Was someone watching the family? Kristen Rieger certainly certainly thought so. While working at the farm, she was so convinced that somebody or something was lurking in the shadows of the forest. Just months before the murder, she packed her bags and fled, never to return, aka the previous maid. At the same time, the house keys disappeared from Andrea's desk and somebody attempted to break in to the engine yard. Andreas also voiced concerns that livestock was missing and that somebody was creeping around his attic. Over the course of several nights, he heard strange noises coming from above, but when he went to investigate, he found nothing. His neighbors urged him to go to the police, but Andrew refused, saying, "I know how to defend myself." Yeah, no. While these incidents were the cause for concern, nobody had expected what happened next. From April 1st, all of the members of the group of family seemed to have vanished. Cecilia did not appear at school that day, a Saturday, and the family didn't attend church on Sunday. The absence of Victoria, who sang in the choir, was particularly noticed. Yeah, crazy shit is happening. On Tuesday, 3 neighbors decided to investigate. Discovering that all the doors were locked, they broke into the barn adjoining the farmhouse. Daylight penetrated the murky barn, illuminated a ghastly sight. The bludgeoned bodies of Andreas, his wife, Victoria, and Victoria's daughter, piled up among the hay from the barn. The neighbors were able to enter the farmhouse, where they find the lifeless bodies of the new maid Maria and little Joseph. Each of the victims has suffered fatal blows to the head. Literally. Okay, let's see. Because there are photos. Right here. Yeah. And the maid and the son was found right here. This is the farmhouse right there. So, you got to see pictures. The police conclude that the first 4 victims had been lured one by one to the barn and murdered before they could even cry out. The killer stacked their bodies one on top of the other and partly covered them with hay and an old door that had been dumped in the barn. He then went into the farmhouse, where he killed Joseph, who was asleep in his cot, which is a crib, if you guys want to know, back then, and the maid, Maria. He covered their bodies with clothing and sheets. Each victim had been bludgeoned with a mallet, an axe, picks. If you guys don't know, you use it for farming, literally. Let's see. On the face and head, the elder, Casilla, also show signs of strangulation. Okay? Sorry if I did that weird. While the majority died a quick, albeit vicious death, the younger Casilla took several hours to die. The pathologist discovered tufts of her hair, tangled in her fingers. And in her hand, she had apparently pulled some of it out as she lay dying. The pathologists estimate that the murders took place around 9:30 p.m. on March 31st. Furthermore, the killer did not immediately flee the grisly scene. He remained at the farm for several days, feeding and milking livestock and helping himself to bread and ham from the pantry. Neighbors later claimed that they had seen smoke coming from the farmhouse chimney. The family dog had been tied up in the barn but unharmed. Skorperhausen police were called in to investigate, but after realizing that they were in over their heads, the more experienced Munch force took over the case. The initial theory was that the killer was a Farquhar motivated by the family's considerable wealth. However, research of the farm indicated that the gold coins and jewelry had been untouched, and no belongings or livestock were missing. When police questioned local residents, the name Joseph Bartle came to their attention. Bartle was a serial robber who had once escaped a mental asylum. In 1919, he robbed the Elder family in a small village of Ibenhausen, about 13 miles or 21 kilometers from Hackensack. Many speculate that only a madman like Joseph would have remained at the crime scene, living among the bloody bodies of his victims for so many days. However, other than the tenuous circumstantial evidence, nothing tied him to the crime. Mayor Lawrence, who had once wanted to marry Victoria and had possibly fathered Joseph, was the prime suspect. Throughout the investigation, he was the one of the three neighbors who discovered the bodies, and he lived the closest to Hackensack farm. He had clashed violently with Andrew over his relationship with Victoria and had even reported them to the authorities for their incestuous relationship. According to the other neighbors on the scene, Skeltenberg was also said to have been remarkably unfazed when the Cooper's body were discovered, despite the gruesome nature of what they found. Skeltenberger's outward calm behavior could be attributed to shock. Day. Yeah, sorry about that. It's like Lawrence was investigated at the scene crime on April 5th, 1922. At the time of the murders, he claimed he was a happily married man with no motive for killing the entire Grouper family. Nevertheless, even today, he remains a favorite suspect among the townsfolk of Skeltenberger's family still lives in the town and has had to endure speculation that he was the killer, even though, as his son, Louise, pointed out, there has never been an indictment. One of the most intuitive theories about the case concerned Victoria's ex-husband, Carl, who supposedly died in the trenches in 1914. His body was never actually retrieved, leading to the chief of police in the town, Ludwig, to suggest that perhaps Gabriel had not died after all. If he had survived, he could have traveled to Hackensack and committed the murders, perhaps in revenge for his wife's incestuous affair with her father. However, on December 12, 1923, Carl Goebel's death was officially confirmed by the Central Prosecution Office of War Losses and War Graves, and he was ruled out as a suspect. Another surprising suspect was the cruel, controlling head of the family, Andreas Gruber himself. Let's see. Arthur Adolf Jacob Koppel argued in an article in the Match newspaper that the Madak used to kill the family victims was handmade by Gruber himself and would have been difficult for an untrained person to wield with such deadly efficiency. However, this theory fails to explain how Andrew could have inflicted such fatal injuries on himself. In 1941, an elderly neighbor, Jacinta Meyer, made a deathbed confession to her priest, Anton. She stated that her brothers, Adolf and Antoine Comte, were responsible for the Hetterfeld murders. She explained that her older brother, Adolf, had been in an intimate relationship with Victoria and had been infatuated when he became aware of Victoria and Andrew Gruber's incestuous relationship. According to Jacinta, Adolf and Antoine had killed Victoria and Andreas Gruber, then dispatched everyone else living at the farm to ensure that there would be no witnesses. However, it was not until 1952 that the police decided to investigate the brothers' possible guilt. By the time Adolf had been dead for 8 years and Anton was an elderly pensioner who categorically denied any involvement in the murders. He was arrested, but after 3 weeks in custody, released without charge. The combination of the unexpected footprints in the snow leading from the forest to the farm and the mysterious sounds apparently coming from the attic paint a frightening picture of a sadistic intruder hiding in the house and waiting for his moment to strike. The picture continues to fascinate professional and amateur sleuths many decades after the slaying. However, the sleek lack of evidence, incomplete case records, and the death of potential witnesses and suspects means that it is doubtful the mystery of the Hetterfeld murders will ever be solved. The most recent investigation into the case took place in 1986, and over the years, more than 100 suspects had been questioned. Unfortunately, during World War II, a significant amount of the police files were destroyed. In addition, busts of all 6 of the victims' heads, which had been sent to pathology institutes of the University of Munich for basically trying to find out the motive, have been lost. While the heads were in Munch, they were sent to a clairvoyant who claimed that 2 people have committed the murders. 1 year after the murders at Hetterfeld, a court order was given for the farmhouse and outbuildings to be demolished. A small marble monument near the original site, along with 6 graves for the family and their maid, is all that now remains to mark the horrors that unfolded all those years ago. The next one would be the possible murder in 1931. Yeah, this would definitely be a short video for you guys because, one, it is a very short case. No suspect, nothing. I want your guys' thoughts on it, and hopefully we can get this case solved like many other unsolved, but I know that this case will remain unsolved until it's actually solved.